You're in the bullpen. You might want to watch where you're stepping. Here's American Shorthorn Association CEO Monty Souls.
Well, I'm Monty Souls, executive of the American Shorthorn Association. We want to welcome you to the bullpen. Today, we're here at the NCBA Trade Show and Convention Center in New Orleans, and we have Patrick Wall with us. He works with the Extension Department at Iowa State University and also the executive of the UGC. So, Patrick, tell us a little bit about what you do and what UGC is and the extension work that you do at Iowa State University.
Sure. So, I was appointed as the executive in 2017, so I've been at it 5-6 years. And basically what that organization, UGC stands for Ultrasound Guidelines Council, and there's 4 breed association reps on the board. There's 3 from industry on the board, 1 technician, and then the 3 labs have a representative on the board. So it's a large group of people. We only meet 4 or 5 times a year. But basically we set all the standards, all the protocols for certifying the technicians that come to the farm and take the images, as well as the lab technicians that interpret the images in the lab. So I'm in charge of putting all those tests, if you will, together. We do 1 field certification a year right now. We've had 2 in the past. It's been in West Texas the last few years. So basically all the techs travel to 1 location. They scan 40 head of cattle, and they have to line up close enough with carcass data and image quality, and they get their certification. They're good for 2 years, and then the process kind of goes on. There's a little over 100 technicians nationwide. That number has been as high as 120, 130. But so we're staying consistent, which is good. The ultrasound industry is, you could say it's plateaued because it's been around a long, long time. But we're still hanging in there, doing about as many as we have in years past. It does obviously follow U.S. cattle numbers. So fewer cows means probably some fewer bulls getting scanned and that type of thing. So the other side of that is the lab techs. So all the people that interpret the images in a lab need to be certified as well. I do obviously 3 of those because there's 3 labs in the country. And we certify all those people to make sure that they're tracing and interpreting the images accurately with carcass data. That's the main part of the gig. And then obviously I'm here at NCBA to kind of update the breed associations as to what's happened, how it's going, what's new, all that type of stuff.
I'm not sure everybody understands the amount of technology and the amount of time and energy that is put into the scans that you take and the ultrasound work that you do on the farm. So I guess what I'm really trying to get to here is the U.S. Beef Breeds Council is made up of all of the executives of all the beef breeds. They actually control UGC, and they hired Patrick Wall to do this job. So your beef breed associations has the control over this ultrasound data, and then Patrick becomes responsible to make sure it's done right. And when we put this into place, it really has a lot of meaning and a lot of technology. This data has to be consistent. These lab technicians have to read it properly. The on-farm technicians have to get it scanned properly. We have to stay within a window so that we know that it's going to be very close to actual raw data if you are harvesting the cattle. And can you elaborate a little bit more on that? To what are there percentages that they use or
Sure.
different things? I mean, these guys that we visit with on the farm are the only ones that farmers and ranchers have contact with, but they've had to go through this process in order to be qualified so that they'll be accepted with UGC and the Beef Breeds Associations.
So carcass ultrasound is the only set of information that's collected on beef cattle where a third party is the only one that's involved with determining the result. So it's a unique set of data. The breed associations like it that way, and it's really been the backbone of the industry. The swine industry tried to have the technicians that take the images also interpret them. and ultrasound died as quickly as it became popular. So the third-party verification system has served the industry really well. Outside of that, it is a technology type of business, but there's very few players, very few companies that are willing to manufacture a probe they call it a linear carcass probe. So it's not the same probe that you use for repro. It's not the same probe you even use for swine. So there has to be a company willing to go after it. Right now, there's only two. In the past, there's been, through the history of ultrasound, maybe 7 or 8 type of machines that have been manufactured for that purpose. So the role of UGC moving forward, there's been 2 new companies come into the market in the last 5-6 years. So validating and making sure that those technicians, a lot of them have been in the industry a while, but they're using a new system. And the industry got pretty lackadaisical for a while. They didn't put carcass data behind a lot of the images, behind a lot of the machines, because the technology hadn't really changed much. So when I came on board, we were looking at 2 new systems that really didn't have much validation behind them. We weren't really confident that they worked consistently across technicians. So we went back and started putting carcass data behind every single machine that's currently out there in the industry. The other thing, obviously with the technology, you want it to get better, faster, more accurate. So we look at correlation is probably our number 1 stat. We look at error, standard error, and then bias, which basically bias is, does it constantly predict too high or too low? But correlations usually, kind of in the initial stages of ultrasound, 50s and 60s were good. We are consistently north of 70 and often in the mid 80s. So the technology has gotten better. We've put some things in place to make, hold the labs accountable and kind of push the labs to constantly make this thing better. And it's working. It's been a slow process. It's not a cheap process either, but we're making some headway. The most recent certification we had across all the machine types and all of the labs that participated, all the correlations were in the mid-80s. That's never happened before. So we're certainly encouraged with the new stuff that's out there. We started with old analog systems, and now we're all digital. So the digital output is probably a little more consistent than where we started. So it makes modeling and doing some of those types of things a little easier and more accurate. So that's kind of where we're at. Moving forward, there's nothing huge down the pipe, so we just got to take what we've got and continue to make it better and faster and cheaper and all those things.
So what you're really saying is what we're doing today is probably better than what we did 10 years ago or 5 years ago even.
Yep.
The technology, you got to keep up with it. Our technicians out there in the countryside and your labs and everyone, and this is the man that's responsible to make sure that keeps going, and your breed associations have put this man in place to make sure that happens. Patrick also has another job with Iowa State University in the Extension Department. So it's kind of a neat crossover between some of that for him. And I know when he was in college at Iowa State, he was very interested in the ultrasound work and did a lot of special work with that with the cup lab and different things like that. But right now, Patrick, kind of give us an idea of what you see extension in the state of Iowa, for example, and it's going to be similar, I imagine, in most states. But what your role is in the state of Iowa as you go out to try to help farmers and ranchers across the state of Iowa.
The birthplace of extension was in Iowa. We were the first ones to kind of implement the system. So it's a very important part of kind of the university's image, its history. Iowa is probably doing better than a lot of other states as far as securing funding for extension. We're adult education is kind of as simple as I can put what extension does. There's 6 of us in the state that are beef specialists. So I cover 17 counties in the southeast part of the state. There's 5 others that kind of split up the state, and then obviously there's campus people, faculty, things like that. So we set our own programs. A lot of people drive through Iowa and think that Iowa's all the same. Well, we actually have segments in the beef industry that kind of split the state. When you get to northwest Iowa, there's a lot of feedlots, lots of packing capacity over that way. Mm-hmm. The southern tiers of counties of the state are more cow-calf predominant. So the programming and what you teach is different as you go across the state and across the year. We don't talk about calving in the middle of summer, so we tailor what we offer for educational opportunities based on the demographic of where we live. So Southeast Iowa is obviously cow-calf focused. That's my interest area. And then the 6 of us all kind of have a specialty. So I'm the genetics and technology type of guy. We have one of our specialists is a vet. Another's an economist. We have several that have ruminant nutrition background. So whatever the question might be, we have somebody on the team that can probably answer it. So it's a good team to work with. I've enjoyed it. I'm coming up on 10 years. I enjoyed when I was in industry and when I was in breed associations. It's all kind of the progression has been good, and I can use basically some of what I learned all the way along to do what I do now.
Well, and I would reiterate a little bit what Patrick said at the beginning of this comments about Iowa State being the birthplace of extension work. I grew up in the state of Michigan, and they had a great extension work there, but that was 50 years ago, 60 years ago. And we move across our great country here today, and we're seeing our universities are not funded. And it's really awesome that we have the state of Iowa still funding extension at the level they're doing it, because a lot of the advancements that we've seen in the beef cattle industry over the last 50 to 100 years is simply because of our university systems and the extension work they do with adult education. And so I really strongly recommend any of those listening to this, take advantage of that if you've got it in your local state. I know a lot of these states are struggling to maintain that same kind of funding that they need to make that happen, and I think it's really great that we have that access. We got Patrick here in New Orleans right now from the state of Iowa, helping us share some of this knowledge. I think some of the interesting things for me as a past breeder and now the executive of the Shorthorn Association for close to 10 years, learning about UGC, learning about how the ultrasound data is collected and what has to go on with it behind the scenes that I've learned from Patrick and learned from being in this job role. I just wanted to share it with everybody out there today, because I'm not sure our producers understand all of the work that goes in behind the scenes from our breed associations to the UGC and the technologies that are involved, and it is governed, it is watched, and it does mean something, and it is a big part of our industry. So with that, Patrick, have you got anything else to add?
Nope, just happy to be here. It's my first NCBA. Everybody should come to one of these just to see what it's all about.
Oh my, yes, this trade show is one of the biggest. I think they're talking about something like 4 or 5 acres of trade show here. Your feet can get tired pretty quick, but it's an awesome place to be. A lot of people, a lot of networking. So with that, we'll say so long today from the bullpen, and we appreciate having Patrick Wall from the state of Iowa here as our special guest. Thank you all, and we'll see you later.